Alrighty, so this is the first episode of a new series, and the series concerns the future of Formula One in global superpowers, and I thought where better to start than the United States of America. With the announcement of the Miami Grand Prix coming in 2022, I'd like to ask the question if Formula One can take a stronghold in America. There have been a combination of factors that have contributed to the fact that there are only 2 American Formula One world champions. Formula One has often tried and failed to become more appealing in America, so we're going to discover what does the future hold for Formula One in the United States. We'll divide this video into a couple of sections: the future circuit choices, the influence of Indycar and American culture, and then finally a potential future for teams and drivers. We'll start with circuits, and in its history, Formula One has raced at many different circuits, and most recently at Austin, and will be at Miami, racing on a fast street circuit around the iconic Hard Rock NFL Stadium. There was also talk in 2013 and 14 about a race in New York City, which was even on the provisional calendar for 2014, but these plans never came to fruition. Well, what about a potential return to Indianapolis? Well, after the mess of the 2005 Grand Prix, the reputation there was tarnished and no Formula One race has been held there since 2007. So surely Formula One would want to go back to the home of American motorsport with those oh so famous bricks? Well, it's quite complicated. Formula One can't of course race around the oval, and whilst the infield section is still a Grade 1 circuit according to the FIA, why would we not race at Austin, which has produced some great racing like the Thriller of 2015? Well, why not 2 United States races, I hear you shout? Well, with Miami on the way, we're going to have that, and 3 in America seems a little bit overkill considering, COVID aside, the already jam-packed calendar. With Australia dropping off the calendar for 2021, could the replacement be Indianapolis? Well, I mean, that would be cool, but one thing that really does worry me is Pirelli tyres giving up at the final corner. So, where do I see this going? Well, the Grand Prix in Austin will have its final race on its 10-year contract in 2022, but I do see this being renewed following the increase in popularity for Formula One at the circuit. The Miami Grand Prix is also on a 10-year deal, overlapping with Austin for just 1 season, and I'll be interested to see how they run side by side in the future. It's not like we haven't seen countries hold more than 1 race in a season, it's just I hope there isn't a power struggle for the superior US Grand Prix. And, who knows, 2 races in America still attract a lot of new fans as well, and this can only be a good thing, right? Quickly, before we do get on to my next point, if you are enjoying this video, make sure to subscribe as I'd love to do this full time one day. Right, now to the next one. Formula One and its future in America will always be influenced by Indycar, so this is what we're going to look at now. With Indycar increasing in popularity across the United States, this could potentially jeopardise Formula One in the US. Well, I think it will go one of 2 ways. Either people getting into Indycar will soon have a need for a motorsport fix every weekend, and when Indycar isn't on, they'll go to the next best thing, which of course is Formula One. Or the lack of accessibility into Formula One might promote Indycar further, alienating the Formula One circus. Whilst Formula One is incredibly competitive and hostile, Indycar doesn't seem to have that same feel to it, according to Romain Grosjean, being quite a lot more relaxed, and also it's extremely enjoyable to watch, especially around the road courses. The Indy 500 is of course one of the biggest events of the year, and the way it works leads me on to talking about American culture as a whole, and how F1 needs to crack this in the future. The whole spectacle of the anthem before the head of some kind of organisation saying what they call
for the most famous words in motorsports.
Drivers, start your engines!
is something that Formula One doesn't really do. We could even see the influence of American culture before the 2017 United States Grand Prix, with that cool announcement thingy they did for all of the drivers. Although as Europeans we might have seen this as a bit cringy, Formula One might have to tap into this American culture to make it appealing to the fans, and they could even run a Formula One race at the same time as an IndyCar one. Imagine Formula One going around the inner circuit of Indianapolis before the 500 itself, and the TV audiences would be ginormous. Now I don't really see this happening, but maybe adding the extra element of showmanship to F1 could boost American interest, and in turn, using IndyCar could be a huge success for Formula One. Now what will the future hold for American drivers and teams, I hear you ask? Well, of course, Formula One has its own American team, which is in fact more Russian at this moment in time. Will Haas be more competitive in 2022, considering they've stopped all development in 2021? Well, we'd like to hope so. But if this doesn't work, I can see America's Formula One team becoming Russia's own and Gene Haas pulling out of F1, which I actually think is an emerging inevitability. So, this is a real worry for America. What could be cool would be if an American engine supplier came to the sport, say like Chevrolet, and they were in fact successful as well. However, with no American engine manufacturer at the conference discussing engine changes for 2025, I really feel like this is quite unlikely. This of course doesn't rule out another team joining F1, say if Apple decided they got bored and wanted to dive into this motorsport circus, then that could be a really cool collaboration, but I mean this is just wishful thinking at this point. So what about the future for American stars on the track then? Well, we haven't seen a full-time American F1 driver for many years, and most recently Alex Rossi raced half a season for Manor in 2015, driving around at the back. However, this could be changing. Formula 3 is off to Austin this season, bringing in front of the American people 4 American drivers for them to cheer on: Juan Manuel Correa, Jack Crawford, Logan Sargent and Kalen Frederick. This is no mistake and a very clever tactic from Formula 1. In a country as patriotic as America, these drivers will gain so many new fans for this, hopefully helping them up the Formula 1 ladder. F1 needs to appeal more to a bit of an American audience, and despite Drive to Survive helping, the fact that potentially Indycar is a more realistic goal than Formula 1 for a young American driver perhaps hinders Formula 1's future across the pond. The notion of having to move to Europe to get to F1 will still haunt American progress for a while, so I think this is the issue which will continue to dominate for a few years to come. What is the goal for a young American driver? Is it a Formula 1 seat, or is it that IndyCar contract? Overall, I do think Formula 1 has a big future in the United States. I think the issues I've mentioned here are definitely being looked at by the main people in Formula 1, and so I do hope that Formula 1 also returns to Indy, but that America falls more in love with F1 and the joy it brings to so many of us, and also it becomes a proper staple event on the calendar. I think this is a very realistic thing that could very much happen, but it's going to have to take a bit of jiggery-pokery as well. Now, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to give the video a like and let me know what you think of this series and the USA Grand Prix down in the comment section below. Subscribe if you are new around here and you want to see Formula 1 content every week, and I will catch you in the next one. Later, guys.